We are all born with varying kinds and degrees of talents. Just as some are born with artistic creativity or mathematical mind or athletic physique, some are born with paranormal sensitivity. In Korea, we often refer such talent as 신기. Shin means gods or deity, of course, of shamanic kinds here, and gi means a natural tendency or talent. As the word implicates, we are linking paranormal sensitivity directly to shamanism. But unlike the general perception, not everybody born with a talent are destined to become a shaman, because you become a shaman only when a god chooses you as its mouthpiece. By the way, if you missed my earlier episode about Korean shamans and shamanism, do check it out. Links in the description and at the corner of the screen. So, most others who are not chosen by gods would lead more or less a normal life, like any ordinary Joe and Jane, but it's not really a carefree task when you see and sense things that most others don't care, or actively deny. For this and next episode, we are going to take a look at the stories of people born with paranormal sensitivity and their struggle. For this week, stories told from their friends and acquaintances' perspective as the outside observer, and next week in their own first-hand experience. 5 allegedly true stories from Korea about friends who see dead people. As always, handpicked, translated and narrated by your host, Anthony. My friend, let's call her Hijin, has sixth sense. From which drawer to choose for a prize to whatever family issue is going on to a random acquaintance, she seems to see everything ahead. There's nothing extraordinary about her looks or background, and yet she, out of blue, told our professor that he'd have to go back home early, and soon he indeed got a call that his wife fell ill. Or while she was telling me that she saw a mutual friend in a dream last night, I got a text from that friend that she'd had a little accident. On top of that, she seems to instantly see through what kind of person one is. She explains that she just takes one look and knows. Sometimes even by just looking at the name of the total stranger. There are lots of things in the world beyond our common logic, and I didn't think particularly much of her ability other than overdeveloped sensitivity until this instant. Among Hijin's colleagues was a girl, let's call her Sekyung, who was pretty and very popular. But Hijin didn't hide it that she disliked Sekyung. Not that she anyway mistreated Sekyung, but anyone could see Hijin avoided interacting with Sekyung. Other colleagues started talking behind Hijin's back that she must be jealous of Sekyung. So I asked Hijin what should be the matter with Sekyung. "She's doing all sorts of wrongs behind the shiny facade," was Hijin's reply. That moment, Hijin spoke like a professional shaman I saw on TV, like an old, charismatic woman roaring. She explained that the feeling was so strong even though she'd never met Sekyung before. And not long after, all Sekyung's hypocrisy and manipulation came to light. I won't explain everything in detail, but it was big enough an issue to be taken as their department-wide scandal. I hear Sekyung has quit the university in the end. Some people are born on the shamanic destiny, and I wonder if Hijin isn't such a case. If she lived in other countries, would she be rather considered as a psychic? A friend of mine started to see ghosts, since she turned 14. She still hates her ability and ghosts, but it was much worse at the beginning. Initial shock turned to denial, and for a time she locked herself in a room, refusing to see or hear anything. After 2-3 days of such self-exile, she suddenly felt unbearably drowsy. But as soon as she fell asleep, she experienced sleep paralysis. While struggling to get out of the paralysis, she suddenly felt chills all over her body. She opened her eyes and saw on the ceiling right above her a shadowy figure forming. Gradually eyes, nose, and mouth appeared on the shadow figure. She was so terrified and closed her eyes shut again. About a couple of minutes passed, and she felt her body moving again. Hoping that it was the end of the sleep paralysis, she opened her eyes again, only to find the shadow face right looking down on her, not 1 centimeter away from her face. She shut her eyes again, and in desperation started to recite in her mind the Lord's Prayer that it might scare the ghost away. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Going through the prayer word by word, she waited with her eyes still closed. Silence for about 5 seconds. And then the ghost recited the Lord's Prayer in reverse. She fainted in shock and woke up in the hospital. In the last year of my high school, I was a bit of a lost cause and spent most days goofing around with my bestie. Let's call him Kyungsu. We both had long given up studying or going to university. But one day Kyungsu seemed to have got a second thought about his future and signed up to a vocational course for IT data management. I just thoughtlessly signed up too, following him. On the course, we became friends with a fellow student. Let's call him Minsu. He was a bit of a nerd, but we got on well. We played computer games and listened to music together. Minsu was a big fan of heavy metal music. I wasn't into it, but Kyungsu was eventually hooked. The only thing about Minsu was he occasionally sniffed glue, but otherwise he was all around okay. One day we came to Minsu's house and his mom treated us dinner. During the meal, she made a passing comment that she hoped we didn't mind, despite Minsu being occasionally weird. We didn't understand what she meant exactly by that, but didn't think much about it. After graduation, by some luck, I did manage to enter university, and I didn't get to see them as often anymore, but kept regular contact. One day we reunited, and after a heavy drinking, we crashed at Minsu's place. In the middle of the night, I heard a window rattling. At first it sounded just like some wind, but it gradually got louder. It got so loud that it felt almost deafening in the quiet of the night. Despite of it all, Kyungsu seemed plain knocked out, and I was about to stand up to check what was going on, when Minsu shouted, "Shut the fuck up!" Silence. Then I heard Minsu mumbling to himself as he turned around. "Want to get me? Catch me if you can." Next morning, Min's mom made us breakfast. I started talking about the window going mad the night before, and Min's cut me in. "They were there again, Mom." I could see his mom's eyes getting wet, and she started telling us the full story, that Minsu was a bit weird from the childhood. When he was 4 or 5, he was playing with his grandma and suddenly started pulling her hair, whining that they should go out. The tantrum unusually drew out that Grandma had to give in and take him out. When the gas cylinder exploded and the half of the house broke down. That was just the beginning. One day he would throw a fit that he didn't want to go to school. Then turned out a big car crashing near the school. Or in his teens, he refused going to school one day, and the usual bus to the school crushed, killing 3. In his late teens, the family moved into the current house, and since then he started claiming that something would come to his bedroom window at night, knocking on and rattling it as if to break in and say something in the line of, "It's time to get him." I was shocked, but didn't know exactly how to make sense of so unearthly story. A few months passed, and we got together again to have a drink. We returned to the subject, and Minsu opened up more. That this thing that seemed to have protected him in his childhood now wanted to take him away, like a Grim Reaper. His love of loud metal music and the habit of sniffing glue were apparently all his attempts to get away from the noises and forget his fear about it. Then he said to me, "You too have it about you. But no worries, it will go away soon." Whatever he meant by that. I was just spooked with the whole thing and just wanted to ignore it. And probably for that reason, I got to talk to Minsu less and less. In the university, I and a colleague had a crush on a female colleague. One weekend, we decided to get a bit brave and ask her out. I rang her number.
Hello?
She sounded somewhat down. Hi, it's me.
Yes. What's up?
Well, this weekend... I stopped myself in the middle, because in my mind I saw an image of the undertaker's lantern that is hung at a funeral. Never mind. See you on Monday. I hung up the call and told the colleague's face that was looking at me questioningly that I thought she had lost a family member. He told me I should be joking. How could I know when she didn't tell me anything? I couldn't explain it to myself, but just said I felt it. And indeed, coming Monday, she didn't turn up to the lecture, and could hear from her friends that she was in mourning. While my colleague making a joke that I should start a fortune-telling business, I got scared remembering what Minsu had said about me. I tried to call him up, but could not reach him. After calling around a few mutual friends, I could hear the news about Minsu, that he died. He was sniffing glue again and suddenly fainted backwards and suffered a fatal concussion. I've never seen a ghost in my life. Maybe because I was born with a strong chi, people say. Who knows? On the contrary, my husband is sensitive, often suffers sleep paralysis and so on. Before marriage, we often drove around in his car to dine out, to make a weekend trip for a shopping, all the usual little activities of a young couple. And I started noticing him while driving, visibly tensing up occasionally. His grip of the wheel would get so tight that I could see the veins popping up on the back of his hands, as if he was expecting a crash. The first few times I asked him what was wrong, but he avoided direct answers, saying that it just so happened to him time to time. I was curious, but didn't want to dig too much, and stopped probing on. Time passed, and now as a married couple, we had a gathering with some friends one day. Somehow the topic turned to ghost and horror stories. Unlike me, who had nothing much to contribute, my husband had indeed lots of stories to tell. Out of blue, I reminded myself of his strange habit of tensing up while driving and asked him about it once again. And this time, he finally gave an answer. That it happens when he sees a person standing on the motorway. At first he thought they were real people and stopped short. But then these people would disappear without a trace. Nothing left on the road, nor any damage on the car. He concluded they were ghosts. By the time we were going out together, he got used to them enough just to drive on through them. And nevertheless, it was always a tense moment, and the tension manifested physically. Learning what was really happening whenever he tensed up, that we were driving past ghosts. I must say I freaked out, belatedly. I have a friend who sees ghosts. Both of his parents are professional shamans, so it probably isn't a surprise that he shares the gene. From the time we first met as preteen boys, I knew about his gift, but for a long time I think I took it only half-heartedly, as something mildly amusing. Back in the days when we went to primary school, mobile phones were just getting introduced to the wider public. It was, of course, long before the time of smartphones, but it was still terribly exciting to get a phone of my own. My friend had his phone already before me, but he hardly ever used it for anything other than making and receiving phone calls. In contrast, as soon as I got my mobile phone, I was hooked up with a phone game that was all the rage at the time. I wasn't the only one, and pretty much every kid was mad about it, even playing it underneath the desk during classes. I didn't want to be the only fallen one, so I introduced the game to my friend too, and to my surprise, he was hooked too. One day we were sitting in front of his home as usual, playing the game on the phone. Suddenly I got curious. "You used to show absolutely no interest to the phone games, didn't you?" I said. "True," my friend replied. "And you are hooked now?" "Yep." "So you like games now?" "I guess." After a pause, he said, "Do you know why I play the game?" "It's fun," was my naive reply. "Well, it's because I don't need to see them while I'm focusing on the game," he said. "See what? Your future?" I said. "I mean ghosts, you silly. While I'm focusing on the small screen of the phone, I don't get to see ghosts passing by or trying to get my attention. And yeah, it's fun too, so I don't get to think about all the ghost and spirit stuff," he said. Now we are both adults, and he has now accepted his fate and is currently training to become a professional shaman. But as a young boy, he hated his gift, and apparently gaming provided him a moment of escape. Hi, it's Anthony here, and thank you very much for your listening. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Not just in paranormal sense, but anybody who does not quite fit in the mainstream often has to go through a hard time. I myself never quite felt at ease in the societies I belong to, though certainly not because of any paranormal sensitivity. So I feel strong empathy towards these stories. Next episode, the first-hand accounts would be even more up close and personal, so stay tuned. If you enjoy my work, please give my video a like, leave comments, subscribe to my channel, click the notification bell, and share my videos with others. It all helps my little channel grow and gives me a moral boost. Until the next, stay safe and take care.